Welcome back, listener. How are you doing? I am glad you had a good week. And of course, welcome back to Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. By the way, this podcast is copywritten by Aaron Richmond and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. This podcast can be heard in many places, along with YouTube. And of course, we're on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook and even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. I would appreciate the support very, very much. Today we are joined by Troy Thomas, someone who has come on basically a Facebook Live video in one of our groups. And he has a very, very interesting story to which how he became blind, and more interestingly, his motivation and desire to be a musician and a composer. Troy, welcome to Aaron's Opinion. How's it going?
It is going well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Why don't you get going by talking about, how everything began for you in the blindness world, and then work upwards to where you are today, I suppose. Go right ahead.
Certainly. So,
Mm-hmm.
I became blind when I was 6 years old in a car accident. That is usually the story that I tell when, in actuality, it was the medicines I was given after the accident that caused my blindness, which is called Stevens-Johnson's syndrome. And from there, I basically got a rash that started on my bottom lip and then just kind of spiraled out of control. And I was right back in the hospital. And 6 months later, I was dropped into a blind school. And from there on, I struggled as any blind kid would, with trying to figure out what blindness was, who I was, and just trying to find my place. But for me, since then, I always had sounds, and I always had a knack for picking sounds, and I honestly believe that's where I developed the echolocation, even though I didn't know what it was at that point. I just knew it was something that I had. Until recently, I figured out that I was able to see with sound with absolute clarity. And I do have usable vision. Like, I can look at the camera right now and see my hands waving around as I'm talking, because I do that um, offhandedly. But I can read print to a point. I prefer to use Braille, but I can actually read print. I do like, I'll read my text messages or certain things with when I zoom into my phone. But primarily, I use voiceover, especially when I'm writing in my books. But I became invested in music when I was around 8 or 9. And when you're in this fourth grade, third grade, they pass around the recorders and try to get you into the little junior choir and things like that. But I when I really got into it was when I went back to the blind school that I had left. I left it when I was 7 and came back when I was 12. And that was the time where I really just wanted something. I wanted to be a part of something, but I wanted to be a soloist. I didn't want to be in a group. I wanted to be a soloist. I wanted to be the only one on stage doing whatever I was doing. And that time didn't really come until I was 15. And I ended up sitting in music class, or band class rather. And, my friends are around, joking, not really paying attention, whatever. My teacher passes around the cello. And for me, the cello was love at first sight. I touched it, I listened to it, and I was like, okay, I have to learn this. I have to figure out what this is, how to play this. I don't care what it takes. And that started the ball rolling for me. And that summer, I went through what I really call cello withdrawal. It was like you get me addicted to heroin, and I cannot stop. I had withdrawal so bad to the point I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was depressed. I like people were asking me, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like, I don't know. I miss the cello, and they were like, "You only had it for like a month and a half." It's like, I know, it's crazy, but I ended up going back to school, and when I went back to school, it was one of the first things I grabbed when I went back. I was like, I have to have this. I have to learn how to play this. Granted, I didn't have a good teacher because everybody kept telling me you have to learn right-handed cello. You can't play it left-handed. And then they were telling me you can't play pop music. You can't play, heavy metal. You have to play classical music. I was like, no, I don't, because I'm me, and I'm not doing that. So I ended up struggling the first couple months, and the next year, my grandfather was driving home one day, and I remember this quite vividly. He was taking me and my cousin home, and he asked me, how I was doing with the cello, and I told him I'm struggling, but it's whatever. I'm still working through this. Then he asked me, do you get to keep it when you graduate? And I was like, no, sadly, I don't. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to be lost and alone out there, but I don't know. And he just said, okay. Nah, I just forgot about that conversation. A couple months later, on my birthday, he, calls me and my cousins out to the living room, gets everybody out there. And me and my cousin are thinking that we're in trouble for some odd end reason. I'm just curious. I'm like, why are we sitting here? What's going on? He comes downstairs, and since my cousins had full vision, they could see what he was carrying. I couldn't. I just heard something in a bag. I couldn't tell what it was until he actually got downstairs and was like, "Here, open this." I was like, "Okay." So I unzip it, and it's a full-size acoustic cello, beautifully carved. This beautiful shiny instrument. I sit there and I'm shell shocked. Like, I sit there, my mouth gaping for a good hour, just sitting there, holding it, touching it, kind of spinning it around a little bit, like, wait, what? This is mine? And they have never seen me look like that, so they asked me if I was okay. And like, are you okay? Do you need a moment? I'm just like, um, uh, what? And I finally pulled myself out of it, and I just, hugged both of them. It's like, thank you so much. This is precisely what I wanted without even realizing it. And I think that was the moment when I really realized that the cello took my world, and I realized that I had to make something of myself with this instrument. Because when that moment came, I knew that I could make it a left-handed cello just by flipping the strings. I knew that I could play whatever I wanted just by learning it by ear. And when I came back to school the next year, I was determined to learn. And I already found an idol to look up to, two cellos. The first song that they played I saw was Thunderstruck, and that was on their acoustic cellos. And I was like, okay, I can learn this, I can play this. And it just kind of went on from there. But the electric cello and the true like rock and metal didn't really come out until I found this other woman named Tina Guo, and she did a full Game of Thrones cover. But by the end of it, she whipped out her electric cello and was doing this heavy metal riff, just going up and down this one string. And I was like, wait, you can do that on a cello? Okay, I need to look into this. So sure enough, I bought myself 3 electric cellos, and my the clarity of music just kind of grew into me over time. Playing by ear became my method of learning music. But these past years do not compare at all to the past few months when I found a friend. We were on this video conference call, and we were just talking, fooling around, whatever. She mentions Burke, and I say, "Oh, I know, right?" And like the cello, it was love at first sight. We started talking about dragons, and then she was like, "Wait, you're a cellist. Can you play Game of Thrones?" I was like, "Yeah, I can play Game of Thrones." "Oh, we should cover together." And I was like, "Yes, definitely." And then she got me into watching Game of Thrones, and then that spiraled out of nowhere too. So now, after months of working together, a month of really defining how to actually listen to notes, how to differentiate between sounds. Now I am able to actually listen to a soundtrack, pick out every single instrument that's in that soundtrack, and cover it perfectly. I, because of her, really am now able to actually cover music the way that I wanted to, with a heavy orchestral backing and layer it with metal so that it becomes symphonic metal. And when we started working together, we were only going to do 3 songs. Now we have up to like 39 songs for this Game of Thrones album, and it does drive me crazy. We have no limit, and it's sad, but it's hilarious. And we ended up like when we first started, I was unwieldy with my electric cello. Like I would toss in this wailing cello just randomly, and she would call me and be like, "That doesn't belong there. Why are you doing that? That's not allowed." It's like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I can't control that part of me. And I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to control that wild wailing part of me, because I knew that in the music there already was a sort of wailing electric cello that was the cello for Daenerys and her dragons. So I just had to let myself basically become that part and become that kind of cello, so that it sounded great, it wasn't too metal, and it, it fit with the music. And a couple week like at around that time, really, which was March, I had the idea of becoming a score writer. And I didn't really go into it, because the first time I wanted to do it, everybody kept telling me no, because they were like, that's not the way you do it. You have to go to school, you get a degree, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but there are score writers out there who don't have degrees, but who do fantastic music. My go-to answer was always Hans Zimmer, because he wasn't. He came from nothing, and he basically learned on his own. And he had developed these classes where you could learn how to score write. You learn the background, you learn his perspective and how to feel music, and by feeling music, go from there. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pay for the subscription. I'm going to buy these lessons, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to become a score writer, because that's what I want to do, not just be a musician. I want to score write for TV shows, for games, for documentaries. And sure enough, like I bought the classes. One Thursday, I bought them on a Thursday, the first day of September. I think that's when I was it September. I think it was September. I bought them the first day of September. No, I'm sorry. No, it was October. I bought them that first. That next day, I started writing "We Fly as One," and 2 weeks later, that theme really was complete, and I had full orchestral choir singing. I had this massive orchestral drums just beating out this, and it reminded me of the new character that I'm creating, Heather, and how she flies with her dragon for the first time, and it just fully tells the story. And after that theme, I started working on Fire, and then Dance of Death, and it just kind of like it became a sort of practice for me to develop these themes for these characters, because I know that I can use these practice sessions as a reference for when I go and actually look for work. And then on top of that, just fill the void that I have been craving for, because I love writing these things. I love the struggle I go through. I love the irritation I get when something doesn't work and I have to redo it. And I love the fact that it's mine. It's not a cover, but it's an actual thing that I create from start to finish. And it's fun. I love it.
Wow. Have you thought of being a podcaster?
I haven't actually.
Well, I'm really so touched by your story. Your story is just the way you tell that story and the way that you just spoke to me. I just loved hearing that story. So good, man. So good. And I completely relate to everything. It's so relatable. I just completely related to everything that you just told us. Where to begin? Where to begin? Well, I'll tell you that I was a flute player, a flutist for many years. Played quite seriously at one point. You know, I was going to music audition only music camps and things like that.
Mhm.
And then, a little bit more about my background. So, as you already know, I'm Aaron Richmond, and now the host of the Aaron's Opinion podcast. But when I'm not doing this, I'm a teacher. I teach English as a second language for Company X. And if I'm not doing that, I can tell you that my, academic background is in the field of international relations. I've done a lot of traveling, and I think it's incredibly important to have something that you're able to create because I think one of the most rewarding and entertaining and tedious things is being a podcaster. It's a way for me to be an author and help people like you, like Troy, to help Troy tell his story to the world. And that's so rewarding for me because I started Aaron's Opinion about a year ago with the frustration and idea that there are just not enough good podcasts where blind people can easily come up to the podcaster and say, hey man, I've got a great story. You need to listen to what I have to say. So I
Mhm.
created Aaron's Opinion with the only intention of helping you, Troy, or all of my guests. And that's my intention for creating this podcast. Your story, you're enormously articulate for anyone. And just the way you articulated your story was just so endearing and so perfect and just I mean I could talk to you all day. I'm not going to. But guys, it's these little things that you see on Facebook, when you're watching someone's live and you think, gee, that guy would be great on my podcast. I was right. Wow, bingo, baby, was I right? Because this is going to get really fascinating. Hey, speaking of writing music, could you write music
Mhm.
for Aaron? Can you write music for Aaron's Opinion?
I could, yes, I could.
You know what, guys? You at home? I'm going to give you a magical homework assignment. I'm not going to tell you what I want it to sound like, but I would like you to compose a 60-second piece, a intro track
Hmm.
that can be used at the start of my podcast.
I
Something
have some ideas going.
something very beautiful,
Hmm.
um, but not annoying, not too
Hmm.
hyper, just
Hmm.
very interesting to listen to that catches someone's ear and really is just really well written and just really warms you right up. I
On
think
it.
you. All right, good. We'll let him get back to us about that. I'm gonna keep you to it. I know you're gonna get back to me about that.
Hmm.
I know you're gonna, and I know I'm gonna love it. I can tell already. No matter what you write, I'm gonna tell you I love it. Because I can just tell even by the way you tell your story and by the way you go about things and just your attitude about life that if I like the way you talk, I would love to hear how you write. I would love
Hmm.
your you know I mean basically if I love the way you organize your kitchen, I definitely want to come over for dinner is what it all comes
Right,
down to.
exactly, right. You know, somebody actually did ask me, they were like, and they apparently asked this a lot to blind people. They were like, have you ever been taken advantage of, or what would you do if someone took advantage of you?
Well,
And
I wasn't, I
like
wasn't planning, and I wasn't
they,
planning on asking that particular question. But Troy, you can ask that question on my podcast, and
mhm,
then you can answer it since I don't have an answer. So
of
go,
course,
tell us.
I legit straight up told them I kicked their butt. That was my answer, and they were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yeah," because I have been taken advantage of before, and I have been in that position where I didn't defend myself, and I was like, "Well, why sit back and do nothing? Grab the bull by the horns and say, hey, this is who I am. You take advantage of me, then I'm coming back for it because that's not okay." And I love how being me, being upfront, being like the alpha of the pack or whatever. I just I can differentiate between how how people are, what people want, what people don't want, and what I've seen from my perspective is that the reason why they asked that was because people would usually say, "Oh, I don't know how to answer that," or "I just blah 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 blah." And when my friends told me, they were like, "You were very very blunt with them. They didn't see that coming." So it's like, well, I don't know how else to be because that's just who I am.
And I will tell you that I by far am one of the bluntest blind YouTubers on the circuit. If you're
Hmm.
a blind YouTuber and you think you're more blunt than me, then comment below. I'm more blunt than you. But if you, but to be more blunt than me, you'd have to be really blunt. So I strongly doubt that there are other people who are as blunt as I am and as direct as I am
Hmm.
about certain issues. So yeah.
I something else that I actually came to realize is that when I started writing these pieces and started actually getting into it, I it took it took me a couple days to really think, and I was like, you know what? I feel when I do these things. I feel the kind of bond that Hans Zimmer was talking about, because with Hans, and I can only show this and my little keyboard's right here. With what Hans said was that
Sh- Show us. Go.
when
So
you
in
when you
fact, you can even you know what? You can even turn your camera around so that
mhm.
on the YouTube channel, people can actually see what you're doing as you're doing it. They're gonna love this.
Oh,
You can turn
sure.
your camera if you want.
I
Let's take a
so
look, guys.
what
All
Hans
right.
said was that
Yeah.
in music you're basically having a conversation, and I have lived by this phrase for ever since I started. Like in music, you're having a conversation. There's a question, and there's an answer. And sometimes when I'm writing, like let's see, for We Fly as One, this is the question that is asked all throughout the song. Ah, that's asked all throughout the song until everybody, like all the choir, all the music just comes in and is answered with. And then that just keeps going until she is in the air and she just realizes that she's on this magical flying dragon and she has her friend behind her and they're together. And when I wrote that, that was the question that was constantly asked until that part comes, and I'm just like, there is no way I can stop this now. It's this fire in me that just says, you have to do this. You have to write music. You have to figure out this stuff. You have to struggle because it's so satisfying when you complete it and you look back and it's like, I wrote this massive piece. I wrote this, like, for Dance of Death, I wrote this dark theme that basically just had the same notes played over and over again, but the way they're done, it's so terrifying. Or for Fire, I wrote this awesome action-packed theme for this dragon who's just flying around, blasting people and defending her mistress, and it's awesome and epic.
So when you go through this whole writing process, can you kind of
Hmm.
walk us through the A to Z of how you
Hmm.
actually do it and what software you're using and what
Sure.
technology do you use every day to help you?
Sure, I can actually right now because I have both my devices here with me. Since I have Vision, I do use both GarageBand and Music Studio Pro. Music Studio Pro is basically Logic Pro for the iPad or iPhone. And, everybody knows that GarageBand is like the, usual Apple software device for
Kind of
recording
explain it.
pieces.
Well, maybe
Hmm.
so maybe there's a listener that's not quite a
Oh,
composer and isn't as familiar. So
okay.
maybe explain it.
So actually, let me open. Let's see, what do I have open right now? I have. I think I have a ton of theme open.
Preferably without closing Zoom.
Oh no, I have my iPad right here, so
Okay.
no worries. Aha. So I wrote this theme, which is called it's called Snow Kingdom, and it's supposed to be a really gentle yet beautiful theme written for my two characters who are flying to this distant kingdom. And when I created it, I started with the glockenspiel, which to me spoke a lot of like soft, kind of magical wonder rather than a kind of harshness that was previously seen in my books. So when I wrote it, I basically started off with this little riff of um, and I just kind of kept going with that. And since this character reflects the entire story, and in Dance of Death, the theme is in this key actually, it's in the key of D, and it revolves around. So, whereas in the Dance of Death, it's all it is basically. But in here, it's this happy. And I just kept going with that until I had this idea. And then I went and took the strings and over that theme just basically went. Just all over. And it did come. And I'm still writing that one. I don't have, I want a piece at the end of it that speaks more of what, just how they land and just, what they're seeing. But this, which is Dance of Death, changes the tempo and just the passion to a whole other degree because in here you have this dark passion and just the sense of what's coming. And the way I wrote that was basically holding these D octaves and just alternating between F, G, F, B flat, A, just over and over again. I fooled around with it because I didn't intend on it to actually stick. It did. It stuck well. And I was just kind of playing around. I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, but it stuck. And finally, I came up with this main theme for it.
Yes. There you go. Yeah.
Yes, it's the dark,
Yes.
just
You got it.
over,
You
just
nailed it. You
over and
nailed
over.
it.
And
You
then the
can.
violins come here with.
Yeah. Absolute perfection. Yeah.
And then
Yeah. So
from there,
you're definitely a composer. It's perfect.
from
Perfectly written.
there, I take that and go into this app, which, like I said, it's Music Studio
Mm-hmm.
Pro. It's not accessible at all, and that's what frustrated me for a year since I bought it. I bought it last year because I was looking for an app that was better than GarageBand that had everything I wanted. The choir, the drum, everything, and I couldn't find one that I needed. And when I found Music Studio, I was like, great, awesome, I have this now. But when I finally was able to send stuff into it, I couldn't figure out how to save it. And I was like, okay, how do I do this without voiceover? Like I zoomed in and everything, and I just couldn't figure it out. And finally, it came to me. Oh, there's a save button right there on the outside. That's how that works. It took me over a year to figure that out, and then I was like, okay, now I have all these songs on here, and I have no idea what to do. And it did take a while to get used to the fact that I was able to do it, but now the song has turned into this. I'm going to here, see if I can get this right. There was just so much like hauntingness when I wrote that. So when I was done with it, I was like, I'm low-key scared of what I even wrote. Like
You know
I
that's
was,
you
I
know,
was.
and I'm not sure if you heard what I said a minute ago, but perfectly written. Really, really is perfect. It really is. My next question is, who else have you spoken to in the music industry about your motivation to be a composer?
I haven't spoken to anyone actually. I
Why? What? Why
like
not?
because honestly they are hard to find. um, I have run into other musicians who have listened to my story and they just think to themselves, "Where have you been?" Like I only have recently just started actually becoming this fluent and just like putting these kind of things together. So like I basically have been under the radar actually. Like when my friend sent me the invite to this group, it was the first time I've ever come out on Facebook to like actually do anything. I've been so far under the radar with learning how to write these scores. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah, because what you write is perfect, and what you write is definitely publishable. As far as I'm concerned, it is.
Hmm.
Um, it's very funny. The guest I had on last night is a musician who plays professionally. Well, I know you're going to join my WhatsApp group. The question is she going to join the WhatsApp group? Well, that's to be seen. My advice to you is to never give up on this. Never give up on
Hmm.
this concept because what you have here is something that you could really expand upon and you could really, really, really become a serious, serious composer very, very quickly. So, as far as I'm concerned, we need to publish this video as quickly as possible. And we need to see what can be done once you join my group.
Hmm.
As far as, other musicians. Yeah, I will. I am actually guesting on the musicians. See, it's a YouTuber, right? And
Hmm.
she, like me, is a YouTuber, but um, she was on my podcast last night, and I'm guesting on hers tonight. Um, I'm going to send her this episode, and I'm going to say, basically, what the heck over,
Uh-huh.
you need to be in touch with other musicians because it's really important to network appropriately when it's appropriate. And I
Hmm.
see that this is a chance that is right now, as in the now, maintenant,
Hmm.
right now. And the fact is, to be overly blunt with you about it,
Mm,
I'm someone who has faced a lot of discrimination and was never really able to network appropriately at the right times.
right.
So now that I'm, 29 years old, I'm older than you, I'm 29.
Hmm.
I realize, gee, as an older person, as an adult, I realize, gee, okay, well, that part of my life didn't go so good. So if I have the chance and the privilege to help someone else the right way, I'm going to do it.
Yes, exactly.
So I
That's how
have to,
I felt for so long.
well, you're only 22, but I will be sure to send her a I will just send her a message.
Hmm.
If she comes into my Zoom early enough, I will just bring it up briefly before I come onto her channel. But yet,
Right.
probably not because I want her to focus on her channel. I will give her the episode and say that you need to join. Well, if you both are in the WhatsApp group, you guys can talk amongst yourselves about what needs
Hmm.
to happen. But there's got to be some. I mean, now I don't know. Understand? I was just a musician, a flutist. I never got into the composition side of it.
Right.
There's got to be some way for you to. Well, for one thing, um, the first thing that needs to be done, I know this even from an entertainment law perspective and podcasting side, is you need to, now that you're on YouTube, as quickly as possible, you need to publish your content and then you need to go contact the U.S. Patent Office, U.S. Copyright Office, I meant U.S. Copyright Office, and get this stuff copywritten and get some forms, get some papers flying around
Hmm.
to make sure that you can't be, someone can't just copy using a recorder. They can't just record the notes that were played and then rewrite your music and then take it as
Right.
theirs. So actually, I'm going to ask you to do that very quickly. I need you to get your content copywritten. Um,
Hmm.
that would be the first thing. Now, because it's not copywritten yet, I am still allowed to air it out on my channel because I'm not taking your content. The problem is
Hmm.
that someone else could.
Right.
So, and then actually the person at the moment who actually has the authority of the content in this case is me because
Hmm.
I push the record. And when you push record on a podcast, it's already copywritten. See?
Right.
So we're kind of stuck now. Now I need you to go get your side of it copywritten before you get stuck, you know?
Uh-huh.
So, I would just Google, you're clearly, able to do things such as
Hmm.
write music. So if you're able to write music, you should be able to use Google. Google, I
Yeah.
don't know, U.S. Copyright Office. See if there's an office near you, wherever you are in the universe. See if there's a field office near you that would be willing to meet with you. I'm guessing over Zoom
Hmm.
there would be some, proof of identities and all that stuff. You'd have
Right.
to show who you are. You'd have to get some sort of an identification in the copywritten system to some
Hmm.
degree. But what I'm saying is, you got to this has to be taken care of
Right.
for sure. Or else, speaking of taking advantage of people, or else someone else will definitely
Hmm.
take advantage of you, and they do it all the time. It's a
Hmm.
major fear in the creator community of content being misused accidentally or on purpose, but there's a lot of accidental and on purpose spills of material that should never be published. So,
Hmm.
um, I mean, I'm sure you're okay with me publishing this
Of
episode,
course.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Of course.
okay. Because technically, I'm spilling out your content that you haven't,
Hmm.
but of course, understand from a legal perspective, it's not yours because you didn't copyright it.
Right.
So it's kind of weird how the laws work like that.
Hmm.
So, um, I am not a lawyer, so I'm not able to do it for you. If I was, I would gladly, at the end of the call, if I was, I would gladly turn off the recorder and say, okay, let's let's get the money going here. Let's get the forms filled out and get this taken care of. If I had the authority to do it, I would, but I don't.
Hmm.
I can't. Um, Go ahead and talk to some other people in the industry and see
I
what
will
can be
definitely.
done. Yeah, that's my best advice to you about this. So now these characters, as you
Hmm.
say, who are they? And are they your characters? Or are you writing for someone else's characters? Who's the character?
These characters I write for myself in my own book series that I have on Wattpad. Um, I it's what's called the Indigo, and I've been writing it since I was 15.
Okay, so
And
you're also a published author then.
hmm
Oh, you are?
hmm
Oh, good, good. Okay. Well, then in that case, at the end of this, please send me your information so that I can put it properly into the description for your
Mm-hmm.
for your literary information. I do need to say that now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's really good. You know what I would do now that I know that, I would just contact that company, whoever helped you to publish your writing, see if they know who you should talk to about copywriting your music.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that they generally do, but if they're used to publishing written material, they would be able to put you in touch with an appropriate authority to publish the music legally and properly.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I would do. See what they say. I would definitely get on the phone with them, send out an email, Facebook message. Hey, I'm already an author. I need to know how to copyright my music. Does your company provide this service? Probably
Mm-hmm.
not, but they should be able to tell you who to talk to. It's really
Right.
cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have. When I started, everybody was telling me that I should write an autobiography, and I was like, I can't. I don't. I don't have the. My life is boring. I can't do that. So when I started, I wrote the first three chapters as an actual autobiography. But then when like the powers and all that stuff came into play, it just kind of went on its own. I was like, okay, I'm good with this. So like the main character is me from a standard perspective, but with all of his superpowers and everything else involved, he grew to be someone else. And for the longest time, I've been wanting to write themes for my characters and themes for the books, but I didn't know how to. And when after I started the master classes, the first thought in my mind was Heather. She's a new character I'm creating. She has her own little novella that I'm creating. I need a theme for her, her dragon, and for the book itself. And then when I started writing those themes, which is We Fly as One and Fire, then I was like, okay, now I need to write for the actual Indigo themselves. I need a main Indigo theme, like how you would have for Spider-Man or for Game of Thrones. And then I was like, I need to have a main theme for all the rest of these books. So yeah, it spiraled into me having practice sessions, but by the end of it, actually, having my work used as backing themes to basically describe the characters. Because what Hans said was that when you score for movies, you don't want to score as like really a picture to picture kind of thing, but you want to score for a story. That's what you're scoring for. You're writing music to a story, and that's how you think of it. And he went into massive detail about it, and that's what really helped me begin writing for my characters. Like he described how he didn't want to score for The Lion King because it's Broadway. Why he's like, why would I don't want to write for Broadway. Or Pirates of the Caribbean, he was like, I don't want to write for pirates. Like what? But then we actually listened to how the stories were being told and shown. He was like, oh, okay. And that's when he took that and grew from it. And I have taken every word he said and found it relatable. Like you said, like I've been able to relate to it. I've been able to understand it, and I have taken what he said. Simplicity is key. I've taken three notes and made them into something else. I've taken my cellos and done weird, wacky things with my cellos to make weird sounds to think, how can I use this in what I'm working with in either the album that I'm working on, the Game of Thrones album, or with my own pieces, or just with whatever I'm doing. And I've understood that when it comes to score writing, you can do so much with just what you have around the house. I have literally beat pots and pans together to make a massive gong sound. I have tapped silverware against cups. I've thrown things to make, crashing sounds. I dropped a light bulb in the sink the other day, and it was like, oh, if only I recorded that. That was my complete accident, but if only I recorded that, that would have been cool. I, I found so many creative ideas. I literally sat outside 2 weeks ago at night. Like it was around midnight. I sat out there for a good 30 minutes just listening to the crickets, to the wind blowing through the trees, and I'm just like, how can I use these sounds to write music? And then So sometimes it does drive me crazy how many ideas I get just by sitting and listening, just by observing what other people do and say. And I'm just like, how, where. Sometimes I wonder where does it end, but then I think to myself, I don't want it to end. I don't want that kind of creativity to stop because it's epic, it's fun, it's cool, it's insane, but it's awesome.
I could not agree more. It definitely is. Yes. So, what types of activities do you do when you are not composing? What are some of your other hobbies?
I absolutely love dancing. That has been my fun little thing since I can remember. I love dancing. And actually, I'm surprised I didn't bring this up before, but I love dancing with my instruments. Like I love when I said wacky weird things. I love doing stunts with my instruments. I love uh, spinning on the ground with my cellos or, you know, backflipping with my violin, which I have done. I don't like to do that on a regular basis because sometimes I scare myself half to death. I'm going to break my neck doing it, but I do it. Or, running across tables, jumping from table to table, just, weird things. I love it. And I love listening, just walking, hiking, swimming. I I do love watching movies, obviously. Um, I love I love fishing. I love swimming with animals. Actually, that I have loved for years. Anybody tells me, "Hey, we're gonna go to SeaWorld and swim with the dolphins. You want to go?" I'm like, "Oh yes, I'm on my way. Yes, when and where?" I love it because it's another form of music to me. It's another form of creativity where I can go out and live in the world and actually feel what I feel when I write. I went into the mountains in Western Maryland for the first time, and my friend and I went up to this mountain spring because they were collecting water. And I stood there in the water. The water was ice cold. It was cold on my feet, but I felt so peaceful and just at peace with my soul. I was like, I have not felt like this in a long, long time, if at all. Like, what is this? And she was like, "You love the water. Why does that surprise you? You love the water." It's like, it doesn't surprise me so much as it will when it comes out of nowhere. Like, I felt so at peace just standing in that creek water, just listening to the water run by. And I was like, I love it. I love this. This is amazing. So I love listening to nature and letting it speak to me in the way that music does. And I love teaching and like talking to people. Like my my friend's daughter, when I finished my first theme, I sent it to my friend and they were riding home. Her daughter was like, "Mom, are you listening to an action packed movie?" And she started laughing. She was like, "No, it's just something that Cello sent me because my name on this one app is called Cello Phoenix, which is my stage name." And she was like, "No, just something Cello sent me." And she showed it to our daughter. She's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so cool. Oh my gosh, can I paint and draw his characters?" And that actually brought a tear to my eye. I was like, "Oh, your 13-year-old daughter wants to do that?" She's like, "Yeah, you really inspired her to do that." I was like, I feel so touched. Like I love that. I love the fact that a 13-year-old can listen to what I do and say it sounds like an action-packed movie. It sounds like something's coming, or people are fighting or people are dancing. I love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. When someone, who's younger than you is able to really, really make that connection between the two.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool where I've known people who have started podcasts because they have listened to Aaron's opinion, and I think that's like really cool, so touching and so
Hmm.
endearing when people do that. Definitely, definitely. Well, of course, I'll want more information about your stage name and your profiles and things like that. Yeah. As I say, if you could just send me a text on the messenger, which
Mm-hmm.
is a one text message with all of the written information you need me to include in the description. I
Mm-hmm.
just copy, paste,
Right.
wham bam, Bob's your uncle, and then you got,
Mm-hmm.
then it's in there. But it's really good to be able to have all this information and know all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, this is really it's really inspirational to be able to create content that can help someone else. As we say here on Aaron's Opinion, if I just helped Troy, I might have helped another composer, or maybe I helped someone else. Who knows? You never know who you're helping, and the most important listeners are those who are silent ones, who never
Mm-hmm.
who never come up to you and never say anything. So this podcast, along with it being a podcast for blind people where we talk about the critical issues in the blindness community, it's also a podcast for people who might be shy, who don't necessarily have courage to stand up and speak up and tell
Mm-hmm.
the world their story like you did today in such an entertaining, powerful, and just really really engaging. You're just a really engaging person to talk to. You really are.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, 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 really enjoyed the interview. To which I am 100% positive that we will have many, many, many more. And I will certainly expect you to be one of our greatest contributors to Aaron's Opinion. In our
Actually, if I can ask,
sure, of course you can.
would you like me to play?
Your cello?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, go for it. Play
I have
something.
I have
Yes, go.
I have one theme, and it's called Rain, and by far it is not only one of my favorites, but it's one of my favorites that my friend and I have covered together. And this is from Game of Thrones, and we did something different with this one. In this one, we actually have her saying the phrase that Daenerys says when she tells the dragons to breathe fire, and it is Dracarys. So let's see. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh wait, it's not on speaker. Oh shit! Of course I have to do that manually. Let's see. What's that? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I know I'm blind, but I'm not that blind.
And now this is something that you wrote, right?
No, this is a cover by Ramin Djawadi.
Actually, you know what? No, thank you. I'm paranoid about that. No, let's not play that one.
Okay, then
Yeah.
I can definitely do one of I can
How
definitely
about
do one that I
an
did.
okay, an original? Yeah, let's go with
Okay,
an original that you wrote. Yeah, not a cover.
okay,
That's too
definitely.
risky. Yeah, so an original for sure. Go for it.
Hmm. Wait, where's that?
I cannot hear you. I think you, my friend, I think you touched the mute button by mistake.
You
Nope,
hear me
there we
now?
go. Now it's
Okay.
back.
I am so blind. I swear, the thing was right there. Okay. So let's see. I can actually do.
An original.
Yes, I will do Dance of Death itself. Actually,
Okay, and this is the thing that you wrote.
yes.
Let's hear it.
All right, let's see. Where are you, Demo? There you are. And this will be done on my white electric cello, which doesn't look like a normal cello. It actually looks like a. What I tell people when they look at it is that it looks like a figure eight with a stick on it. So Oh yeah, I need to plug it in first. That would actually be really helpful. There we go. That's it.
And that was a magnificent ending to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion. I loved that. I loved that. So it was so perfect. I actually took off my headset, and I could even the beauty and the thing that stood out to me about that instrument, electric cello. Every time I hear it, it's so beautiful and also so unusual too. It's so strange sounding and so perfect at the same time. It's kind of like an odd. It's definitely kind of like a really good meal, but kind of has an unusual pinch at the end of it. There's a lot of Middle Eastern instruments that reminds me of. That electric cello, it also reminds me of the famous instrument known as the oud, which is played in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, is what it reminds me of. Also
Hmm.
reminds me of some of the Asian instruments too. So that's really really cool. Um, do you have any final words before I turn off this recording?
Um, my final words
Oh yeah, you
actually.
should. This is the part where you give yourself a plug where people can get in touch.
Oh yeah. You can actually contact me via my professional email, which is uh, cello.phoenix21@gmail.com.
Cool. Please put that in the description text, and I'll make sure to include
Hmm.
that for you. Yeah,
I will definitely. But my
because
final words,
I'm definitely going to spell that wrong if I try to
right?
type out cello.phoenix.
Right.
That'll end up. I don't know. It'll end up in some other country. Who knows where that will end up?
Don't worry. I have accidentally sent messages and emails in different languages. I didn't realize that my keyword was in say Chinese or whatever, and I just like, oh, oops. So no worries at all. I will definitely.
All right. All right. Well, I absolutely loved this episode. I promise that I want you back on back on this podcast many
Hmm.
times to celebrate your work and the achievements of your life and what's going on. And you're just a great guy.
Definitely.
You're just a great guy to have around here on this podcast. I'm sure. I promise we'll have you back. Hey,
Hmm.
by the way, listeners, so thanks so much. And here's my plug. If you like today's episode, as I said, consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. If you want more information, just ask for it in the comments below. You could email me at aaronsopinion6@gmail.com to remind me that I'm actually a horrible person who's going to hell. Or you could or you could remind me that I'm a great person, I'm a great saint, and I'm doing a great job. Either way, I would love to hear from you. aaronsopinion6@gmail.com. AARONSOPINION6@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Either that way, you becoming a patron, you becoming a follower, a subscriber here on YouTube. I would just love some feedback from you guys around the world because I know there's a lot of secret listeners all over the world. And thank you, whether you're listening to us from the United States, Canada, Brazil, Jamaica, Great Britain, Turkey, and India. We certainly appreciate your interest in Aaron's opinion. As I like, as I like to say from all over the world, I wish you all very good health and great successes from all over the world, from whatever and wherever you might be. Have a good day today and a great day tomorrow.